It's coming up. I mean, you work so hard. You all deserve to have a nice, relaxing time. So I want to take advantage of this lecture to do something different. Not the whole lecture, only maybe a first half of it, or depending on how many questions you have, we can go as long as you like. So that will be the first part of what I call career advising. All right? Some of you who have been for 21, 24 may have seen it before. It won't hurt to revisit it. You may have other questions you want to entertain. Beyond that, I'm going to just mostly dive into the viscous equation of motion, the so-called Navier-Stokes equation. That is the basis of this poster problem called inclined plane. It's a very good problem. So we're going to probably spend at least 20 minutes on it. We're going to use it to look at what the equation of Navier-Stokes look like, how you can simplify it, and from that how you can actually obtain some very nice closed form solution, which is not always typical. So that will be the agenda of today prior to us breaking for the Thanksgiving break. Homework then on the left, I haven't posted yet, but BL stands for boundary layer. And this session 2A, that will be posted end of today, so you can have that at your disposal to look at during the break. And the homework is only pretty mild. The inclined plane is almost, I'm going to go through that in class with you. What left is just very simple algebra. And the other problem, problem 6.12 in chapter 6, it has two sections. The only section I want you to do is satisfying continuity equation. It's a 5-minute problem. So it's a nice break for you not to have to deal with a lot of fluid homework over the break. Any question on the assignment before I start? Okay, so there are some old and new recently graded quizzes to return to you. Please let the folder come around and pick up what you need. So I want to share with you is my own personal experience throughout my career and put myself at the stage that you are now in. When I was a senior or junior in college, what was on my mind, what I care most about. I think majority of you, from the statistic, 80% plus of you will go to industry work, and then about 15% go to other professional school, namely graduate school or in mechanical engineering or MBA or other MD or law school, etc., etc. So I want to share with you, what is expected of you when you go to industry, right? Because the majority of you is what you will be doing. And some of you who want to go to graduate school, I want also let you have some feel for what, again, that entails. How many of you may consider going to professional school or graduate school? Yeah, that's very typical. Yeah, about 15, 20%. So I want to tell you what to expect. And then some of you, when I was your stage, 30, 35 years ago, being entrepreneur just wasn't a thing then. Then what your parent, may consider is, oh, go work for the General Electric, or go work for the IBM, and then 30, 35 years to get a gold watch and then you retire. But what happened to GE now? Right, you read the news and so forth. And the economy keeps changing every 5 years, so you never know. Sometime, someday in your life, you may decide to have your own company. And I happen to have some experience in that, so I want to share with you. And it's mostly personal based, so by that I mean there's no black and white, there's no written book and say, here's what you do. And you may disagree with me, and I welcome that, and we can always discuss it. So for those who don't know me, I was born and raised in Hong Kong. When I was 18, I came to school in the US. I went to Northeastern in Boston, which is not a top-tier school by any means, right? I mean, it's known for the co-op program. And it's important because, to be honest, I wasn't very smart. I was certainly not having a very high IQ. But I managed. And then I went to MIT, and I told you MIT stands for Man in Trouble, but back then it's also people say it's also stands for Made in Taiwan, but whatever it is. And I've been teaching for more than 30 years. And I have a company which I will talk about, and I've been doing that for 20 years. So I can share all this experience with you. You don't have to pay me. And as a matter of fact, if I think that's appropriate, after the break, I may have an open house at my company and I'll buy you dinner. If you come. So, what is this about? All right, how many of you think that the only way you get a job is to have a very high grade on average? No? That's a fair statement. There is some threshold, you know, anything above 3.2 will be most places sufficient to at least get you to be interested by the recruiter. Lower than that doesn't mean it's the end either. My point is, the grade is only one aspect of the whole package of what company will be interested or not interested in you. So my point is, not all of you had a stellar grade point average, right, by definition. And if you're not, don't be disappointed. Your other experience is equally important. All right? Now, having said that, I'm not letting you go off for the final exam. Okay? You still have to study. The point is, once you're in the company, nobody cares what your grade point average is and where you graduated from. Once you're in the door, honestly, your performance is the only thing that matters. So it is what I call a key. Your degree at Virginia Tech is a very respected program. There's so many alum out there who come back many times and ask me, do you have students that can recommend that I can hire? They're out there and they want you. You know, you're very privileged when you think about the opportunity you have. Point is, you know, your grade point average, your degree is just a door that is open for you, and you have to still perform. So I think that is hopefully common sense. So let's start with industry first. That's where I probably spend most of the time, and graduate school, and then entrepreneurship. All right. So feel free to ask questions. I want this to be a very interactive and, you know, productive time span. I enjoy doing this because I think food is important. You know, however, statistically, let me put it this way: how many percent of your 4-year curriculum, the fluid, the thermal, the mechanical design, will be used in your career for the next 30 years? Anyone want to guess? Obviously, it depends on what you do, right? If you are in sales, you may not use more, but if you are in research, you use, but say on average. Anyone want me to guess? 15%. 15%. It is true. It doesn't mean you're wasting 85% of your time here. No, that's not the point. The point is, this will serve you well throughout your career. The navigator is important, and it's an important training, but some of you may never use it. But so be it, right? It's not necessarily mean it's bad, but what is to follow, I felt, hopefully will serve you well for the next 30 plus years. And some of them are common sense, some are experience that I had myself, maybe mistake that I made. So by sharing that, hopefully you can avoid it. So, finding your first job, I have mentioned many times that it's important to have some type of experience on your resume. If you don't, please, you're still junior, please work very hard to enhance that. Summer internship, co-op, volunteer, even if you don't get paid. Undergraduate research while on campus, you know, talk with professors. Just try not to have what I call a vanilla resume. You know what that means? Just nothing but go to class, no extracurricular activities. Just I would rather take a student with a 3.2 or 3.0 grade point average, but had a much diverse interest and background than someone who has a 3.9, but a plain vanilla resume. Does that make sense to you? Think about that, right? Grade is just one aspect, not the only thing that people look at. You have to know what you like. Career fair, obviously social media is so different now than when I was a student. There's so many ways. Use your connection, use people you know, your friends, relatives, you know, try to use that to get yourself a job experience in the related field, obviously, preferably, right? Because that's what you want to do. And what do you want to look for in a company after, say, this is not just an internship, this is the first job. And this is very important, and some of you may know that very well. You know, companies that are hard to get in, they have good training program. You know, those are questions you may want to ask during an interview, right? How will I be evaluated? Will there be any mentorship? Is there opportunity to advance my career? Training. Bad side will be high turnover. You know, if you know people inside the company, you can check that out. And compensation practice, lack of bonuses, lack of incentive to go the extra mile. Other consideration, this is very sensitive. Location. You know, we all want to close to friends and family, right? I mean, I have two daughters. They are one in California and one in Colorado. Of course, I'd like them to be right here in Virginia. But my point is, location is important, but I think job is even more important. Think about this, if you make a good salary and doesn't matter where you live, you can afford to visit home how many times you want. Whereas, contrary, you may stay here in Blacksburg, but there's no job, you work at McDonald's. You don't want that, right? So it's all personal. I can't tell you what you should do. You have to decide it yourself, but my point is, yeah, a big salary, sometimes it's important, sometimes it's not. The location, again, likewise, you know, it's all personal, and you have to make that decision. Big versus small company, again, back when I was your stage, working for the big firm is a very job secure type arrangement, you don't have to worry about it. But nowadays, small company, you know, there's so many startups, don't rule them out. You know, they have more flexibility. Yeah, risky, but, you know, there's no guarantee in life. Even if you work for General Electric, right? Okay, so this is my first day full-time on my job, and I actually started my job at GE, I did. So I have no idea what I was doing, and this is how I felt. This is my second daughter, who's now in California. You know, you make mistakes, you know, when you start on a new job. And that's why the co-op and internship is so nice, because you are there to, and being a graduate student too, you know, you're there, you can make mistakes without a lot of consequences. It doesn't mean that when you're full-time and permanent, that when you make a mistake, you get fired, but no. However, having that training ground is very comforting, right? She has an older sister who see the opportunity in her life and just start flushing the toilet. So, you got a job, full-time, name a company, Pratt & Whitney or Siemens. What would you need to do to excel and be kind of developing your career to the point where you can advance it? Some of these are obvious. Be organized and, you know, detail-oriented, especially if you're doing engineering analysis. But what may not be aware for many of you is your cost to the company, right? Because even many of my graduate students do not appreciate that. And when they go to industry, it's a wood awakening. So suppose someone pay you $70K with a BS degree. Is that typical? Is that kind of what you expect in, say, the DC area? Right? Is that the market rate? How much do you think the company actually have to have in order to put you a desk in the room with a computer so that you earn that 70K? That 70K is what you get paid. Factor of 2, 3. Depending on the company, some are factor of 3. So you say, well, why would that be? Well, first, your benefit is at least 30%, right? And there's something called overhead. And some company, like Boeing, have high overhead because of all the facility and all the infrastructure, the secretary, the training program, and all of those add up. And surprisingly, you cost the company 2 to 3 times the salary. $200K a year just to have a warm body sitting. So you need to know what I call when to stop. You know, when you're a graduate student, some of my graduate students in PhD, they do a lot in-depth work for science, and that's important. But out in industry, really, they can't afford that. So you need to know when to move on. Be a team player. This is such an important part. And I see from my career people who are a lot smarter than me. You know, when I was in high school or college, they're student. You experience that. They ask a question, I don't even know what they're asking. Have you had that feeling? And that doesn't necessarily they will do well. If you can't work with people, you are very, very limited. Because in today's environment, much more so than it was 30 years ago, it's all about teamwork. Trust me, I don't care where you work, whether you're Google or Ford or you name it, you know, a power plant. It's all about working together. Okay? Communication is important. I have more of that, both written and oral, and that's something I really work hard on my graduate student. And know the culture of your company. Each one is different. I always keep using GE as an example. I have nothing against GE. I worked there before. It was a great company. But back then, yes.
What was your job title when you worked at GE?
I was a mechanical engineer. I co-opted there before for almost a year and a half. And then when I finished, I worked there full-time for about only 6 months. And then I went to graduate school. So I'm just a mechanical engineer, just like you, with a BS degree, right? It was a great company, but back maybe 20 years ago, you know one of the ex-CEO of GE, Jack Welch? He created a culture in the company that every employee is being ranked A, B, and C. If you're in the C category, basically you're told, start looking for a job, right? Now, that kind of culture is not very conducive for teamwork. And so you have to look out for what does the company value, all right? So, you know, that's just one example. You have to find out yourself. How do you know? You need to talk to people, right? And networking, once you are on the job, you know, people, especially a big company, if they don't know who you are, you're fresh, you have to go search trees, you know, go meet people. And both at work and other interest groups, networking, right? Whether it's cycling or volleyball, whatever, you know, just something that you can get connect with more people and enjoy it, have fun. Because life is short. If you don't enjoy it, it's not worth it. Doesn't matter how much they pay you. Any questions so far? Am I wasting your time?
No,
You want me to continue?
Yes.
You're pretty quiet. All right, I need to ask questions. So later year, so you know, 2-3 years now, you're looking for the future horizon. And you need a mentor, someone that technically is very competent and can work with you. But more so, you also need a champion. That's not necessarily a mentor. It may or may not be your immediate boss, but someone who can promote you and make you shine, make you visible in the organization. And the question you can ask yourself is, you know, am I doing something that is dead end, you know, or is it a skill that I can market myself in the future? And the visibility within the organization, the recognition, you know, how many times you present to a senior VP or customer outside. Those things speak volume, right? Especially in a big corporation. And then you have to start looking at long term, 10 years down the road. Have some planning, have some goal. Nowadays, you know, you don't work on one problem and one problem alone. Back then when I was your age, you know, I can be a senior engineer for a compressor aero design for my entire career. That's very seldom. You get moved around for good reason, because the company wants to have your experience and your diversification to make that a product. Globalization, that's a given. You know, you will be traveling overseas, depending on which company you work with. And I always say, your economy is so dynamic, you know, prepare for changes. And you know, it's a little negative, but something that people say is either you change or you die. And that's a good thing. You know, that means that our economy is adapted enough that as the environment changes, we change. So be sure that you are embracing that, and that's a good thing. professional development, don't get stagnant, especially when you just get a bachelor degree. There are people with a master degree or people who have PhD, and then you want to make sure you continue learning and growing. And there's no formula because each company is different, each individual is different. Pace yourself, I think when I was your stage, just to become a unit manager took a long time. It was like 30, 35 years ago. It took you 5, 10 years. Nowadays, things may be different. If you are interested in being management, you should set some expectation. But your career is long, 30 plus years, so pace yourself. And you have to rely yourself to see what your next step is, right? And have more fun. Any question on that? I can't breeze through it. Sometimes it's common sense. I don't want to waste your time. Yes?
You talked about like mobility and not being too specialized, but at what point do you start going deeper into one path instead of having the opportunity to make lateral moves?
For those who cannot hear in the back, let me repeat the question. I want to make sure. So I talk about being able to be mobile and diversify. How do you know and at what point do you think that should be shared with your supervisor? Was that the question?
Yeah, just I guess instead of growing your base, growing upwards. Because right now I've done 4 different internships in different sections.
Yes.
And I don't know whether to stay in the section and grow farther into that or take another opportunity to grow farther.
That's a very good question because a lot of big firms, a couple of companies that I know, Caterpillar, General Electric, they have what they call rotation program. I assume what you mentioned is just an internship or co-op, right, where you may have worked in different departments. So, company, first of all, if you don't know this, let me repeat it. Company like intern and co-op because it's a chance for you to look at them and a chance for them to look at you. And very often, the permanent job is first given to the people who work in a company with co-op and internship. Number one, that's not just where you can work at other places, but the company to offer you the co-op would love to have you if all work out. If it doesn't, then at least you know it's not a good match. And in different departments, you learn to see different engineering aspects. Now, the other aspect of that is when you get hired full-time in what they call rotation program, typically 2 years, and they purposely put you in 6 months in different departments, just like almost a co-op and internship job. And the reason they do that, they want to give the young engineer an exposure of different aspects of the entire operation of the company. In the case of gas turbine, you may be doing heat transfer, you may be then doing manufacturing, you may be doing material, and even testing. 6 months each department. The reason they invest in that, think about that, is not very productive, right? But they invest in that so that you get a broad exposure and then you can find out what do you want to do permanently out of those departments. So that's a convenient opportunity for you to declare what you would like to do. Aside from that, once you're in a company, and that happens, you may have made a mistake working in a department that you're not that enthusiastic about, that you're not excited. And the question is, under what condition and timing should you make that loan that you want to do a lateral transfer? That's very personal and very situation dependent. But my advice for you is wait for the right opportunity. Be a little patient. And I just had a discussion with an alum who graduated 30 years ago who worked for Honeywell, and that question came out. But his point is, try to be a little patient, give it at least a year, that you can look around and be more certain what you like to do, then make that lateral transfer. Company, if you're a good employee, they will not let you go. They will accommodate you. I had never heard a case that a very good employee or associate, and that he or she wanted to do a lateral transfer and the company get rid of him or her. That never happened. That never happened. But the time that you wait is for you to prove yourself that you are of value to the company, that you are a keeper, that they want to have you. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, so do give yourself a little time before you decide which department to work for in, say, at least the next couple of years. Fair enough? Yes?
Do you have an opinion on a big company like Honeywell or Exxon versus going to a smaller company? kind of like, do you think there's an advantage, like an outstanding advantage to one or the other?
So I cannot, with a broad brush, tell you working for Exxon is good. We have a lot of alums working for Exxon. I have a couple of my graduate students working for Exxon, and they absolutely love it. They get good pay, they get to travel, and they get a lot of responsibility. And yet I have a small company. I have employees that's just like you. Some have bachelor degrees, some have master's, some have PhD. Their job nature is a little different in a small company. They do everything. They do the design, they do the testing, they are kind of jack of all trades. In a bigger firm, you're more compartmentalized, right? But the question is not the question is not whether it's big company or small company. The question is you have to ask us, what is my role? What do you do in either the big company or the small company? That's more important than whether it's big versus small. So until you have more specific question for me, I can't, with a broad brush, tell you that's what you should do, right? Does that make fair sense? But obviously, a small company, you probably get a chance to do a lot of things, because by nature, they have to in order to survive. And because of that, you may get exposure to a lot of things that you otherwise wouldn't be doing in a big company. On the other hand, it may be a little bit less stable. But stability is such a thing that I wouldn't put a lot of emphasis on it. Even if you're for a big firm, you can never guarantee to be stable. So I would probably put the question to yourself, what is your interest? What excited you? What would get you up in the morning and look forward to go to work? Whether it's a small company or a big company, it's almost secondary. Right? Same reason for the location. Right? So those are very personal questions that I cannot have a clear answer once and for all. Yes?
I know you own a smaller company. If I'm considering working for a smaller startup, what are some signs that I could look forward to determine if it's a company that's going to be successful and a company that would be good?
Excellent question. That's more important than whether big versus small. So the question is, what kind of sign you look for a small company that culture-wise will be a good fit, that you think you'll be successful? So let me defer that when I talk about my own company and experience as an entrepreneur as to what you should do if you are the owner or the boss. And that, I think, will answer some of the questions. It all has to do with the culture of the company. Right? That may be a better time to do that. Other questions? Yes?
How did you go about, or I don't know if you had to, but how would you go about finding the champion and the mentor? And what to look for, the differences between the two?
Yes. So the question for those in the back is, I mentioned before, a mentor versus a champion. What's the difference? A mentor is someone that works with you very closely on a day-to-day basis, more on the technical side. If you say, for example, you get such high with bachelor degree and do turbine heat transfer for Siemens. Come on, think about that. You have one class in heat transfer in your curriculum, and you're not going to design a turbine stage that is at 3,000 degree Fahrenheit, etc., etc. So you got a mentor to tell you about this is the computer code you can use, and here's what you look for the output, and here's what you should do, blah, blah, blah. More the technical mentorship. The champion is someone that sees you as a very unique individual. Usually it's in the management, more likely maybe your immediate supervisor. And he or she think that, wow, this person has such a good attribute that I can see him or her 5 years from now can be a leader in the organization, and that we need to nourish and develop his or her skill. Right? So they put you in a different category. And at GE, they do that too. They have some accelerated program, engineering development program, where they see, this is person that is of leadership quality. And while technical skill is important, but not all technical competent people can be a leader or management. So they will single out those people that they will grow them into the higher hierarchy. Do you want to do that? That's personal. I can't say that always is the most rewarding job. It's all up to you. But if you are interested in becoming a VP of engineering, say a company like UTRC, United Technology Research Center, then you have to ask yourself, what do you do to make that happen? And try to promote that. On the other hand, you're very comfortable with doing fluid mechanic compressor design, then stay technical. And there are reward for technical people, never go into management, they are called fellows. You know, they are also fairly well compensated, but they don't manage people. They're a consulting engineer with an organization where if there's any technical issue come up, people will go to them and ask, based on your experience, what do I do? So they're different path, right? But more I see is over the years, things get more diversified. There are interdisciplinary type dialogue, working, material scientists with heat transfer people and so on and so forth. So it's, the more expertise you have, probably you can make a better contribution to the company. Right? Make sense? Other questions on industry? What to expect? Yes?
Big versus small, we were talking about that. In your opinion, if you're thinking about entrepreneurship later on, do you think it's more beneficial to get your experience in a big successful company or a smaller company?
Again, so how should I say that? Let me put it this way. It's better for someone to pay for your mistake than you pay the mistake yourself. Does that make sense to you? So I wouldn't encourage you to go to start your own company immediately after school. Right? Give yourself a couple of years. Why? Because there's a lot to learn. And having a full-time permanent job, you can make those mistakes without having torpedo your company.
I meant I'm more working for a smaller company
Right.
where you're doing more roles.
Yeah.
as opposed to-
So having said that, this is where I want to answer your question. It depends on what your company is that you want to form, right? If you want to build a, I don't know, software company, then you may pay to work for someone like Facebook or Google and make some connection. Small company, actually, very importantly, you have to be careful of non-competing agreement. I'm going in a tangent now, which you know what that is. So whether it's big or small, make sure you don't lock yourself in. But again, I can't give you a general answer because it really depends on what you would like to do in terms of the company you want to form. I would say either one, a small firm or a big one, will give you very important experience in the first couple of years. That while you're doing that, maybe moonlighting on the evening or on the weekend, then you can start developing your own business idea and get it launched. So as long as you are interested in being an entrepreneur, whether you work for a big firm and a small firm, I really don't think it makes a big difference. Both will be important experience for you, right? And then while you're having that full-time job, continue to develop that side business, and then when the time comes that it's mature, then you quit. Yeah, I don't think the experience of either big or small firm. Obviously, a small firm, you get to see the whole operation, from financial to human resources to employee benefit. You probably have to be exposed to. So from that aspect, it may be more advantageous. But those soft skills you can learn, right? So I would say either one will be valuable to you, but try not to immediately jump into starting your own business. It's a little hard, right? Questions? Okay, so then move on to graduate school. And those are for those who want to either go to mechanical engineering or other disciplines. So there's some myth, because when I was your stage, I had no idea what grad school entailed. What is it? So those are some misnomer or untrue perceptions, that you're being trained to solve a specific problem. This is for a master's degree. And for a PhD, the more misconception is, if I do, like my student, if I do turbine heat transfer work, that is the only job I will get after I finish my PhD. That's far from true. That's not what it's all about. So what is it about? And I'll be doing the similar work for the rest of my life. That's just not happening. That's a myth. So what is it about? So in the case of fluid mechanics, let me say, what is it not about? So in the case of my graduate student, we have wind tunnel and we have engine that we actually run turbine engine in the lab. and collect data. So it's not just doing experiment and collecting the data and just plotting the result. That's just not what we do. And then I spoon feed them and tell them every step, every day, here's what you do, here's what you don't do. And it's not meant to do just one specific problem, that experiment that he or she is accustomed to. No, that's not the training. What it is the following. Problem solving. The toolbox is what I always use as an approach. Meaning, this class is an example, right? I mean, you have continuity, you have continuity, you have all this, and then at the end of the semester, I challenge you of how to use all those to solve the problem. For a master's degree, it's much bigger. You know, even though the work is in fluid mechanics, we want mechanical design. We have to make drawings that the machine shop can make. And you have to put it together once it's made, debug and work with LabVIEW to run the experiment, and on and on and on. All this is to mentor you to solve a problem. Not just that particular problem, but just the mindset of what to debug, what to look for. You know, and the systematic approach to problem solving, that is what you're being mentored in. And it's original and creative research. No one has done it, because if you're done, it won't be research. And it's very exciting. And you're pushing the frontier of technology, and when you get the result, you publish it, you go to a conference that people show up from all around the world and listen to you, and what you have done, and how can I use that to design a better engine when I go back to my company, etc., etc. And through that whole process, what is most important, and I emphasize that a lot for my graduate students, is your communication skill, both written and oral. That is set, if you ask me, that is almost 50% of the success of your career. The ability to communicate at all levels, both oral and written. So that needs to be really taken into serious consideration. So here's an example of a PhD program. You have to identify a topic, what do you do, why, what is it out there in the literature that is lacking, and then you become the expert, more so than me, as an advisor. At the end of your PhD dissertation, when you defend, I'm going to ask you, what have you taught me? Not I teach you, because you're now the world expert in your area. And if you are interested in being a faculty or do work with the R&D Center, that is a prerequisite. It's a lot of work, but it's exciting and rewarding. Very few of you will pursue a PhD. Some of you, quite a few, may be doing a master's degree. And my advice for you is the same advice that I would give for any student, including my $2. If you have a desire to get an advanced degree, do it now. Do it quick and get it done, and then start your career. There are companies that will pay for your graduate education, but there's no free lunch. You know, they expect you to still work full-time while they pay for your tuition, and they expect you to just be performed like any other employee, and it's pretty hard. You know, it's pretty hard to do that while someone pay for you. It's no free lunch. So at Tech, if you have a good grade point average, you can get something called a teaching assistant or research assistant. They actually pay for your graduate education, tuition and stipend, enough to live comfortably. So those are the things that you may not be aware of, and you should check it out for those that 15%, 20% of you want to go to graduate school, right? And so that's something certainly worth considering. And those are a couple of things that I thought would be interesting for you to be aware of in terms of getting a PhD together. Right. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because it's such a limited audience. I would rather you talk with me offline. So graduate school, some of you may not want to stay at Virginia Tech, and all respected. You may want to go to other university for a diverse experience. And I encourage that, and I think that's a very healthy thing. So you may ask yourself, what do I look for in a graduate school? So mostly, let me go through all of these. So it's not just always go to MIT or the Stanford. You have to look at what area of specialty you want to focus in. And the ranking general is important, but not the most important criteria. For example, at Tech, we had a very strong program in propulsion and turbo machinery. And that is something you don't want to overlook. Other places, of course, if you're interested in, I don't know, robotic, maybe you'll consider Carnegie Mellon or other places. But, you know, the question you have to ask yourself is what would you like? How long it take for a master degree? You know, 1.5 years is very typical. We have here a program that would take only 1 year from your BS to get a master degree, and that's very attractive. And the professor, you know, you have to meet with them. If you're going to spend the next 1.5 years working on a project, so make sure you have the right chemistry and talk with the graduate student. And whether it's a big professor that has a lot of visibility versus a young assistant pro, those are all personal. Right? Okay. So question on graduate school. Anyone? Anyone interested in MBA? Yes?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what about like degrees that aren't mechanical engineering for grad school? Like, any advice, kind of same outline, just
So for MBA, you know very well for some program they require you to have job experience. The best program in the country, the Harvard, the Duke, the UVA. So two years is minimum. Otherwise, my advice is always when you're young, have no commitment, no family, no mortgage to pay, if you want to get further education, do it now. Do it now. The longer you wait, the more difficult it is. Yes?
So I'd like to get my master's and my MBA. Would you like say one should be done before the other?
So the question is, for those in the back, if you want an MBA and a master, which one do you do first? I'm maybe biased. I think a master in mechanical engineering can take you to a very good level where you start with a company and you hit the ground and you want and can make a very good impression for all the reasons I mentioned. You do a project, you write it up, you know, you're more mature. Okay, you are more capable of taking on your own project instead of working under somebody's wing. Do that, and then while you're in the company, now I'm contradicting myself in here. Some company, if they want you to be an upper manager and in the management level, they will send you to MBA. But again, it's no free lunch. But do you know how much an MBA costs, a degree? You ask, have you looked into that? Have anyone who wants an MBA, have you checked how much it costs you? There's no scholarship. Everything is to pay by yourself. No idea?
40 grand for 2 years.
Huh? How much?
40 grand.
2 years is typical. How much?
40 grand.
40 grand in 2 years? That's pretty cheap.
100,000.
Hmm?
100,000?
100,000 is the minimum. From what I see. You want to go to the best program. You want to go to, you know, otherwise it's, for MBA, I'm not sure it's worth it. You're talking about, including living expenses, 120K, plus your salary that you're going to lose. So it's a pretty big financial commitment, right? It's different from master degree in mechanical engineering, because then if you're good, you get an assistantship. You don't have to get a loan to get a degree in mechanical engineering for a master. I pay my graduate students all the time if they're good, because they're doing well for me. And I pay them for my contract from Siemens or Rolls-Royce, whoever. But an MBA is, you are all on your own nickel and dime. So 110K plus a salary that you lose, some people hesitated. Right? But you know, if that's what you want, go for it. There's no such thing as I'm too educated. Yes?
What if the MBA is meant for like a more personal thing where like, oh, I'm going to start a business in a couple
What?
of years
Yes.
and I'm going to have to know the economics of a business that's
Yes.
an MBA versus
Right.
I don't necessarily want to go up in management.
Yeah, I heard that all the time. So again, those in the back, if you decide to get an MBA, it's not because I want to be the VP of General Electric or whatever that is, but I want the experience so that I can start my own company and know what to do and know the trade and so forth. I don't have an MBA. I manage my company, I hope reasonably well. It's been around 20 years and we are not sinking. And I'm not looking down on MBA, don't get me wrong. I think when you don't have that experience, you can still manage a company. You may make some mistake, but you won't sink. However, I cannot, if you don't have a master in mechanical engineering, you're not going to learn that on the job. I can't let you do that. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so I'm going to share with you my take on running a company now, and I'm not sure an MBA would necessarily make me a more successful entrepreneur, but that's very personal because that's what I did. You talk with someone with an MBA from Harvard, they would probably disagree. They probably look at me and say, if you have an MBA from Harvard, your company is 10 times bigger now. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. At that point, then, if it's that personal, can I get an MBA from like an online program rather than?
yeah, sure, there are all kind of online program, yes, absolutely, then that's a good compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good compromise. Yes, yes.
Could you talk a little bit about master's versus PhD thesis?
Yeah.
The difference between.
Right, I have that right here. So master is very simple, typically a year and semester, where you show up, the problem is well defined, and you get paid to do a research project, because the company like Caterpillar had a problem they want to solve, and your professor and myself had laid out the problem for you. PhD is not. PhD is where there is a project, but there are a lot of unknown, there are a lot of open questions. And the first year you're fishing around just to get trained on how to do experiment, how to do simulation without necessarily a topic yet. And then halfway through your program, typical PhD is 3 years beyond master or 4 years from your bachelor. Then halfway through your program, you're more knowledgeable on your field. Then you define a problem and say, well, there's a lacking knowledge in, say, I don't know, heat transfer with film cooling on the blade. And then you tell your professor, this is what I want to do for the next year and a half to get my dissertation. And at the end, I always ask this question of my PhD dissertation student is, you know, what is a dissertation PhD worthy of a PhD, meaning it has to have depth, all right? Things that are new knowledge, no one had done it before, new physics that is insightful, and that you cannot take 3 master theses and put them together and say, oh, here's my PhD dissertation. Doesn't work that way. Does that help answer the big picture sense, the difference between PhD and a master? Right?